So, funny story about, I guess, how I got to be here today. A friend and a client of mine, saw in the Capital Ideas they were having a dinner in Birmingham, and one of the topics was drones or UAVs in forestry. He said, "You should call Lee, maybe go to the dinner." And so I called Lee and talked to him, and when we were getting off the phone, what I thought he said was, "Come join us, we're going to have a guest speaker." It was when I showed up for the dinner, I realized he said, "Come join us, you're going to be the guest speaker." So I kind of talked a little bit there, and then he's like, "Yeah, we're having an annual meeting, I'd like you to come talk." And I said, "Where is it?" I said, "It's Dixon Center." And I love this place. I'm always looking for an excuse to come down here, so it wasn't really hard to get me here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on with unmanned aerial vehicles and how that may apply to forest management. Okay, this is my background. I already took care of that for me. One important thing is interested in drones and management forestry on account of all the ground that is NFH. And you're going to say, what is NFH? And that's a term that we use is not for humans. So there's some woods out there and some sites that are just so nasty and so thick that you just don't think a human should ever be in there. But a lot of times we end up in there taking data anyways. And so I thought, well, if a drone could at least look at those sites, I wouldn't have to go in them anymore. At least that would be good. So this is UAVs then and now. So probably some people in here who are more experienced UAV pilots than I am. It's based on the time that they spent with RC planes growing up. So I don't know when somebody could probably tell me when those started to appear, maybe the 70s or 60s. But
Before then,
okay. So it was earlier than that when you had RC planes. So that technically that was an unmanned aerial vehicle. So obviously there's been quite a progression between this, and this is one of the latest. I don't even know what this model is called, but it's I think it's Lockheed Martin's newest platform. Is obviously it's pretty nice. Okay, so in America, this is the Predator unit that the U.S. military used a lot, and so that's kind of the perspective about drones now in America is, this is what people think of when they hear about drones, and there's concerns about that. Other concerns are privacy issues, and I can't really understand what a lot of the privacy issues would be, but I guess maybe some people think that they need to put one of these in the sky and go check out their neighbor over there. I don't really know what else you could do to invade somebody's privacy with one, but just guessing. So drone, UAV, UAS, all these are terms that are kind of thrown around. Some of them are used interchangeably when they really shouldn't be, and stuff that you just hear a lot. So drone, it's a pilotless aircraft used for reconnaissance. UAV is aircraft piloted by remote control or onboard computers. The onboard computers is important because it gives you autonomous flight, so you don't have to have flight controls. And so now we're really developing into UAS is really going to be the heading that all this stuff is going to fall under. I kind of came up with this definition off the top of my head. It's an integrated system that uses multiple components constructed for the purpose of collecting meaningful data from an autonomous aerial flight platform. So this is kind of to give you an idea of what a UAS is. Okay, so you've got to have a platform. You've got to have something bird. You've got to have something that's going to go in the sky. Then you've got to have a sensor. A sensor is what collects the data. It depends on what you're trying to collect and what you're trying to get, what sensor you're going to use. So on platforms, people are using multiple sensors to collect multiple different data sets from the sky on one flight. And then you've got to have guidance. And so guidance is kind of what makes all of it go around. And you see this is the Trimble unit they've just come out with. And the EB which is what I bought, is it's very similar in terms of design, functionality. Trimble, usually pretty proud of their products. They're proud of this one. It was quite a bit more expensive, which is why I didn't buy it. But Trimble, being in the forest industry, they are starting to look at some analytics of the data that's collected to get it into a form that's going to be useful for forest management. Okay? So the validity of all things aerial is guidance or GPS, and this is kind of an illustration. This guy's got a buy watch. The GPS system puts you in the right place at the right time, and that's what GPS systems are about. It's making sure you're at the right place at the right time. So all the data is geo-referenced, and so your guidance, your GPS has to be good. So it's good when you're starting to analyze it and use it. So the burning question that everybody wants to know is, can we cruise from the sky? That's what people want to know is, when are we going to take foresters and they're just going to be in the office all the time, and they'll have somebody that run around with a drone out there and look at the timber and tell you how much it is, and no more woods walking. And based on my experience, I don't really think that's going to happen. What a lot of people people in this room probably know more than I do when LiDAR really came on the scene and people started talking about it. So my observation is the only thing that can really produce the data in terms of volume and stand dynamics that people want is LiDAR. And so the data set is the result of a work of a system. So LiDAR encompasses a scanning laser and an IMU, which is referred to as an inertia measuring unit. Now, just to give you a very broad overview of what an inertia measuring unit is, so everybody in here's got a smartphone. When you pull up your map and it shows a little blinking dot where you're at, it's because the phone has an inertia measuring unit in it. So everything that's GPS has an inertia measuring unit in it. There's a huge scale here. So what you have in your phone is very crude, it's very basic, it's entry level. And so then, like, all of our guidance missiles, like that we use, have IMUs on them. And so one of those in a missile is like $1 million a piece. Just the IMU now, not anything else, just that component. So you have a huge scale, and that determines really the validity of how precise is the data you're getting. So that's what people are looking at. And so this is to give you a little bit of idea how LiDAR works. So, see if we can go back. So this right here is a LiDAR scanner, right? And so it's attached and it spins like this. And when it spins, it throws out points. And so the more money you spend, the more points you get. Like, a mid-level is throwing out 700,000 points a second. So that's a lot of points. So it's throwing out 700,000 points a second to the ground every time it spins, and it measures the distance between what the light hit or what the laser hit back to the plane. So you have to have an IMU that's communicating where this was when the light reflected back to it to be able to get anything out of it. I don't know if that makes it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so this is LiDAR, but this is pretty much how everything from the sky works. So you have a scanner you have a sensor that's collecting something. You're capturing something at a width, and so one thing that controls that is how high you're flying. So obviously, yeah, I got the pointer. That's right, I do have the pointer. So the higher you fly, the more you're covering. The lower you fly, the less you're covering. So that factors into it. And so a lot of stuff uses a ground station, which gives you a known GPS reference point. And so the ground station communicates with what's in the sky, communicates with the IMU. And so there's a lot of, this is where I'm at, this is where you're at, and that's how the data, gets the integrity that it does when it on the other end. So this is a point cloud. So that's what you get out of LiDAR. And and throwing 700,000 points on the ground and measuring the distance back as you get a point cloud. And so this is kind of an example of what a point cloud looks like. So this is my observations. A guy that I've been working with, he said, Hunter, if you're really interested in this and where it's going, I suggested you go to a LiDAR conference. And so I did. I went to Denver and went to a conference. And I really just went up there to try to gain more perspective about what's going on and what's going to happen. And these are kind of some of the observations I made through contacts that I made there, people that I talked to. There's some viable applications with LiDAR that exist now, but it's cost prohibitive to large landowner conglomerates. It's cost prohibitive to them, so there's no way it's going to be viable for small landowners anytime soon. The point clouds that you get can't match the accuracy of in-woods measurements. So you're able to tell some things about stand dynamics from LiDAR data, but you're not able to get the accuracy and to account for all the defect that a professional forester can cruising the same area of timber. And so you just, right now you can't get the data that we receive in woods from the sky. And so another thing is, when this was early, there was a lot of people that kind of jumped on the bandwagon and they said, hey, we'll try this out. And so it was a really crude technology, it wasn't ready, it's advanced a lot since then. And they ran it out there anyways. People paid for demos. They got data. What they got back was bad. And so they've got a bad taste in their mouth about what happened. And they just kind of, we've got people that cruise. They do good. We collect data. We know what it is. We're just going to kind of stick with this. And that's, from my perspective, that's where I think the industry's at. They're unwilling to pay for the solution. So that's supposed to be a video. I think. Quick time on that. Well, that was going to be a video of me taking off, but technology's not working with me today. So this is an EB Ag. It's created by SenseFly. It weighs about 2.2 kilograms. It's less than 5 pounds. I don't know what the equivalent is. So there's two sensors that I have, or cameras. One is a RGB camera, which is just like any other, like the camera in your phone, like anything else you have. The other one is NIR, which is near infrared. So what I can get out of this is about 45 minutes of flight time. Depending on how high I fly, that'll allow me to cover anywhere from 200 to 400 acres. And so you have pre-flight software by eMotion and post-flight processing software by Pix4D. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how that works. So this is autonomous. So what I do is when I get to a place, on my laptop it shows an aerial view just like Google Maps. Then I'm able to put a grid or create a polygon that covers the area that I want to fly, the data, the imagery that I want to collect, and then you fly. And I didn't realize this. It's been a learning process. There's been a lot of trial and error. There's been a lot of days where I haven't collected very good data, but then there's been days where I've collected some really good stuff. So it's been rewarding at times, frustrating other times. So you've really got to have a good day to fly on. What I found with this, it's just, there's no weight to it. Think about something like this in 15, 20 knot winds, and you can't ever get your pitch right, or it blows it off center. And so it won't even collect the picture. So I've learned in high winds you can't fly, and you really need sunny days. So once you get the data collected, then you have to process it. And right now it's largely it's just you get the data in there, you get the project, and you hit run. Then you just basically watch it and make sure nothing's going wrong with it. So you really don't have to do a lot, but it's incredibly time consuming right now. Like for instance, one of the projects we flew was about 700 acres. It took me almost 30 hours to process the imagery. So that's quite a bit of processing time for that type of acreage. Considering we had 3 hours of flight in it, and it took us almost 30 hours to process all the pictures. So that's kind of a bottleneck in this right now, but there's a lot of people working on that. And so then after that is data analysis or use. Right now, analysis and use is after I create a mosaic, then I can import it into mapping software and digitize it, draw stuff, just like you would in any other forest management. So this is some of the pictures we've collected. This is my partner. This is their farm. This is where they keep all the stuff down there. This is another property. And another thing is, one of the differences between this and what existing imagery is, most times they're so high up when they take a picture it's static. So when I start flying a property, I go from one side to the other and it takes me a while. Clouds can change. Clouds move. So whereas when you see a picture that's collected traditionally at higher altitudes, the shading's the same over the whole thing. Well, sometimes I have some issues, like you can tell up here that there's probably a cloud right there. That's probably a cloud. And so that's another thing I've had to fight.
The shadow of a cloud?
Right.
The shadow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How high is that?
I flew this at 600 feet, I think. A guy asked me, I actually flew this for a guy who was kind of disappointed, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Ray, I did the best I could. I don't know what you're expecting." He said, "I thought I was going to be able to look at this picture and see deer and turkey in the field." And that's funny, and I laughed about it then, but then I flew another project the next week, and I was doing some digitizing, and I was kind of scrolled in because I was trying to type around the field, and I counted there was like 5 deer in the field, so I was like, well, maybe he wasn't that far off. It's just, it wasn't blown up big enough for him to see the deer. So this is, I'm going to talk more about this in a little bit. This is one of the ways for me as a consultant that it's been useful. So I had a call, and these guys, they wanted to go back into these clear cut areas you can see and plant longleaf, and they wanted a site prep burn. Of course, they didn't have any sail maps, they didn't have anything. They just kind of drove around the roads, and they're like, they cut over here and cut over here and cut over here. I was like, okay, and so actually put it in the sky, flew it to get an idea of what kind of area are they really trying to do for a site prep burn. And so when I got it down and processed it, I actually turned this job down just because, the edge and the potential for jumps in a site prep burn was just a lot more than I was willing to bite off at that point in time. But it was a lot easier for me to make that determination after I flew real-time imagery and was able to look at it.
When you say the edge, you mean there was too much edge?
Right. It's like,
For the amount of acreage?
Right. This is 40 acres. Right, I think it was like 20-something thousand feet of edge, and so really, this is kind of off topic. But site prep burn, you'd have a fire here, you'd have a fire here, you'd have a fire here, have a fire here, and it wasn't a good job for me to take, so I didn't. But I really wouldn't have been able to make an educated decision without the imagery that I collected. And so this is kind of to show you what were, some of the things that you can do with existing mapping software. So this is another clear cut that I flew, and then as you can see, I was able to go in and type out all the drains and all the roads, and then what's left is the reforestation area for next year. So lessons learned. So this has basically been the trees where I've been landing a lot of times. You can see they're trying to run away from that plane. I've crashed it a few times. But conditions drive results. Like I was saying, I tried it a lot to begin with, flying in questionable conditions. Now if it's not perfect, I ain't going. I'm just going to wait till the day that you need to fly and collect good data, and then I'll go. Where you take off the land is utmost importance. If you're flying something like that, you got a linear landing. You really need a good strip that's 100 yards long or something that you're not going to hit any trees. I've hit enough trees, I don't want to hit any more. So another thing, the best is yet to come. This technology is advancing just by leaps and bounds, and even the imagery that I'm collecting now, I think is going to continually improve. So some of the applications that I can see now, young plantation verification. You could fly something and make sure your stand was stocked. make sure you didn't have some areas that didn't take or didn't get established, or you had bad mortality. Like I was showing you earlier, clear-cut delineation for site purposes. You know how much it costs to put trees in the ground. If you're over, or if you're only, if you said that you're planting 46 acres and there's really only 40, you've lost five acres worth of money. And the planting contractor's probably not going to tell you that, just by experience. Some of them may. Pest monitoring. I don't wish for a loblolly outbreak on anyone or in the state or any timberland, but if it were to happen, what I've got would be very useful for going and looking at where the bug spots are at, how can we control it, what's the next step to take, and so forth. Real-time photography, harvest monitoring. I think some of the dealerships are probably going to maybe buy one and use it from time to time. So these are some industries I think that you can expect to see UAVs in. All of these, monitoring right-of-ways, bridge inspections, building inspections is going to be really big in agriculture. Most farmers are going to use it pretty soon. There's going to be too many cost savings for them not to use it. So agriculture, this is what they're looking at. You're getting a normalized vegetation index model. This is going to drive their cropping. This is going to drive their cropping prescriptions in the future. So what I believe. Spillover. There may be some stuff that comes out of using multispectral data, using near-infrared data, some of the analytics that people are working on right now that may have some applications in forestry. That's yet to be determined. So thermal sensors produces a band much like NIR. A lot of different things that you can use this for, and that's you can see pigs in this picture. So that's it. Any questions or comments? I don't know if we have any time for that, but I'd be glad to answer any.